I found it a 5% downgrade. In no way, shape, or form is this trigger in any way superior to the one that came on it. In no way, shape, or form. Hello everyone and welcome back to another installment of AmmoMart. Since we met last, I've kind of went down the rabbit hole that is the Sig Sauer AXG Scorpion. For those of you that aren't familiar with that particular model, it is in fact on the 320 platform. Major difference being that the frame is an aluminum alloy, not polymer. Sig released the gun a couple of years ago, and it comes out of their Custom Works division. And you can see it's a nice looking gun. I have their Sig optic on it, and it has a wonderful feel and balance to it. Really fell in love with the gun, so I decided I would purchase it from a friend of mine. Now, it kind of surprised me as much as the gun costs. Some of these were selling for as much as $1,300 new. Right now, used is $900 to $1,000 to even as much as $1,100, depending on where you're looking. It had the same awful SpongeBob mushy trigger that the 320s become known for. So I decided I was going to do a little research and try to find an upgraded trigger for, yes, an already $1,000 gun. Yep, I'm that guy, a little bit of a trigger snob. And that's where the disappointment starts to come in. One would expect you would get a little better trigger out of Sig than came in the AGX. They actually marketed it as one of the best triggers you can get from Sig, which I found to be kind of shocking. It feels exactly like the rest of the 320 triggers, as I said, putting me on the path of an upgrade. So one of the alarming things I found was that a lot of manufacturers start to suggest things like that this is the trigger you want without sacrificing any sort of safety components from the factory Sig. I thought, well, that's interesting based on the history of the 320 and whether you're on one side of the fence or the other about whether it is a safe or unsafe handgun. So I had had some success in the past with Apex triggers. Apex, of course, is out of Arizona. It's Apex Tactical Specialties, Inc., if you want to be formal about the whole thing. And I had a certified gunsmith install it into the 320. And believe it or not, things got worse. They got way worse. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, you could kind of tell that based on Apex's fine print or their description of their trigger for the 320, that it would not improve things perhaps as much as you would expect from Apex. In their product description, Apex proudly announces that when you buy one of their triggers, let's say for a Glock, just for the sake of argument, they don't say Glock, I did, that you would expect a 30% upgrade in your trigger, whether it's poundage of pull, Christmas, reset, they use the percentage of 30%. They did say that with this particular model, the 320, you could expect a 10% upgrade. I found it a 5% downgrade. In no way, shape, or form is this trigger in any way superior to the one that came on it. In no way, shape, or form. I've used their products in the past on a Glock, was totally happy with it. This is actually a giant waste of $140. That's what it cost, not to mention, of course, the installation fee. Now, I opted for a straight trigger, which is what I enjoy on my handguns. And the best thing that I can tell you about this is that it does crisp the trigger up some, but this trigger is still the opposite of crisp. It's just not as bad. And the reset is actually twice as bad as it was on the factory model. Twice as bad. In fact, it felt like the reset had two stages, awful and then bad. It was gritty. It actually almost tried to stop. And even though I've now dry fired and fired the gun approximately 1,000 times with both of those two setups, live and dry, it got a little better, but not great. I have my handy dandy poundage meter, and what I'd like to do is show you guys some of the data that I've collected. Before we talk about the poundage on the trigger pull, let's talk about poundage and reset. prior to the video, and we'll actually do it on the video before we're done, this trigger consistently breaks somewhere around 4.75 to 5.5 pounds. Okay, not horrible. But for $140, one would expect perhaps a little better, maybe down to 4. I never get there. My particular issue with this trigger, however, as we said, is the reset. When you have a 4.5 to 5.5 pound trigger pull, you would like to see a reset poundage of somewhere around 1 to 2 pounds, approximately half or so of what the trigger pull's at. This guy, believe it or not, from Apex, is about 8 ounces, and I'll do my level best for us to catch this on the video. It is absolutely horrible. It's almost like the trigger doesn't want to reset at all. It's like you want to help it with your finger. Absolutely unacceptable. And in my opinion, I think this is as good as these upgrades are going to get until you start replacing sears or perhaps doing something a little unsafe and starting to shave away some parts to make things work a little better. Not something I would recommend you do, especially with this particular model. So, am I unhappy with Apex? Perhaps a little, and I'm a little bit disappointed in my own decision making in that they kind of told you without really telling you that this thing was gonna suck, and it does. So if you're gonna try to upgrade the trigger on your 320, in my humble, the Apex isn't the way to go. But let's get some hard data to suggest why that's true. So we'll do this a couple of 3 times to get a fair assessment of where the trigger actually breaks at. I'm going to put this device about where you would put your finger, maybe just slightly towards the bottom. There we go. So I'm going to put this on here about where you would put your finger. And we will checker both sides. There's a break. Try to hold this up in front of the camera. Definitely not something that I am enjoying for my $140. Let's go again. So that one was 5 1/4. As I stated, my biggest disappointment with the Apex trigger upgrade is in the reset. It still seems gritty, and it's almost as if when you release the trigger, it doesn't want to follow your finger. It's very easy to lose contact with the trigger almost every time until you get really, really used to it. And it's absolutely not a system that I think people are going to enjoy, especially if you're shooting for time. So, as we go forward, I've actually ordered another trigger upgrade, this time from GrayGuns out in Oregon. I can't tell you how I know this, but a lot of SIG insiders have kind of been encouraging people that this is probably the trigger that they would go with, as long as you understand that this actually comes with a different sear and you still don't lose the safety features that were designed in the 320. So it may not be an apple to apple comparison because this kit didn't come with the sear, but it's my next step to try to get a trigger out of the SIG that I think is reflective of its price point. So I'm going to go down the rabbit hole a little forward, or a little further, and spend some more money and see if we can't get to where we want to go. So just a little tip, if you guys own 320s and are trying to get them upgraded, just wait, give me a little time, couple of weeks, and maybe we'll do another video on the Gray Ghost and see how it worked out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe.